Hi, my name is Kimberly McIntyre. I want to welcome you to my channel if you're new here, and I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you've been here for a while, I want to thank you for your support. I have been enjoying this so much. And today we are going to be talking about fresh milled flour, kind of doing a little bit of troubleshooting. I'm also going to break down some information on some different equipment, my favorites, and today I am making bread. I'm making a loaf of my traditional and some cinnamon as well. I've got a few friends that wanted some. That's what we're doing, and I thought let's just go ahead and talk about all of these things. We're gonna start right here because I gotta put this together and get the bread going. This is my Bosch. The Bosch has been with me for 18 years. This is an amazing mixer, and here are some of the things that I like about this Bosch. First of all, you can take the center out and clean it. It doesn't get dirty often, but sometimes when you put a lot of dough in here, it can tend to come down the center. And so you can just take it out and you can get this clean, and you can spray in here, get it all clean, let it dry, and then you just pop it in and click it, good to go. And then you just put it on the base. This is a very powerful piece of equipment. And my first gift was my hands. So I first started kneading bread with my hands. And then my family gifted me a beautiful KitchenAid, which I appreciated so much. But then they gifted me the Bosch. And this has been a game changer, and you can do all things in it. It comes with this very powerful stainless steel dough hook, and see how it comes out on both sides, so it's covering a lot of ground where, and I'm not trying to be critical, but the KitchenAid hook is just one and this is two, so it's more powerful like your two hands. And I did a comparison, and the bread out of the KitchenAid, everything was the same except for the machine, the mixer. The bread from the KitchenAid came out this much lower than the one that came out of the Bosch, this much higher, and I'll put a picture right here so you can see that. But we just click this on, it's super easy, and that's all there is to it, and now it's good to go. And this is a dough extender, and it's going to help it wipe the center of the bowl, and so it's just going to make it so much easier when I have larger amounts of dough. So we're going to pop that on like that, and then we're going to put this on to lock that in place. And you can see how that is going to brush the center. So now it's almost like we have three arms for this amazing, well, here's a fourth one, amazing piece of equipment. So we're going to get started making bread and kind of target shoot along the way. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my water because I warmed that up. I enjoy making bread. I love being in the kitchen. I love the way it tastes, the way it smells, the way it feels. And for me, most of the time, it's kind of a relaxing experience. So we're gonna start with 1.5 cups of water. And that's a little area that can get tricky because you wanna make sure that your water is warm enough to activate the yeast, but you wanna make sure it's not too warm so that you're not burning the yeast. So I like mine to be about 120 degrees. It can be 110. You just want it warm, but the reason why I like it at 120 is because by the time I add the oil and the egg and the honey, it's going to cool that water down just a little bit, and that way I don't really have to worry about it. Your fresh milled flour is going to have a little bit of warmth, and so that helps too, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So you want to make sure that your water is the right temperature. And this is not a full detailed tutorial because I do have another video where we're actually making the bread, but we will go through some things along the way. So we're just going to pour that in there. And now I'm going to add 1/3 cup of oil. I prefer olive oil, and I have done a test. I have used all of the oils. I have used avocado oil, coconut oil. I've used butter, and I really thought that butter was going to be the best, but it wasn't. It wasn't bad, but the olive oil just gives it a fluffier loaf, and I like that fluffy texture. And I am using olive oil from palmetto olive oil, which is local to me. I'll put a discount code in the description if you would like to order your own. But the reason why I get this is because I know where it comes from. I know that it is pure, and I know that it's very high in polyphenols. Very high in polyphenols. So even though we're baking at 350, it's not going to break them all down. They're not all going to dissipate, and we get to have those polyphenols, and it's really nourishing our body. So palmetto olive oil, and this is, I can never say this right, Cobrancosa. That is the one, because it's mild enough and you don't taste it. And now I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of honey. I like quality, and the honey just adds a nice flavor. It also kind of softens up the bread a little bit. And I have tried sucanat, which is the sugarcane natural. I haven't tried maple syrup, but that might be a good note as well. And honestly, if you left out the honey, the bread would still be delicious. But we just like a little bit of love. Many people like to knead the bread with their hands, and that is fine. They find it therapeutic, and I completely understand that. But I would rather go and quickly do laundry, clean something, listen to a podcast, whatever. While all that's going on, I get to walk away. So this is a time saver, a big time saver. One thing I love about the Bosch is it's a powerhouse, and I can add a lot of dough in here. So I'm doing 4 loaves today. I like to add 1 egg. You don't have to, but my eggs are pasture raised, 100% out there. Hen and pecking, that's how you want your eggs, because then they're nourishing. That chicken needs to be exposed to light. It needs to be roaming. It needs to be eating bugs for it to be nourishing. So just remember that about your eggs. But it also has lecithin, and lecithin is an emulsifier. Helps to give you more fluff. But lecithin is also required for your body to be able to utilize vitamin E, and so it's actually a plus in there, not just for fluff, but other good things going on. And as we talk about lecithin, I like to add more because I really like fluffy, delicious, kind of more airy bread, and that's what this does. Totally optional, but I like this brand, and if you're gonna get lecithin, you want it to be sunflower. You do not want soy. 90% of the crops are genetically modified. Nothing genetically modified in this house. I don't want to gift anything like that. We just want help. Someone told me the other day that they like sunflower butter to use that for the lecithin. I haven't tried that, but hey, I'm up for something new. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons. Again, you can use 1 or 2 or none. It's up to you. Oh, you know what? I said we're doubling that. Let me quickly double this. So we're going to do 4, 1, 2. I'm glad I remembered before it was too late. And now I have to get the stuff out of my bowl. Okay, so another 1/3 cup of oil. And if you want to sell bread, if you want to make bread and sell bread, if that's something that you've thought about, I want you to think about your time and energy that you put into this, how much love you are giving, and that this is nourishment. So you're selling something that is way better than a vitamin or a mineral. So make sure that you charge accordingly. And I charge, right now, I'm charging $12 for regular and $15 for cinnamon. And people understand the value of that. Let's get low. Okay, and we are going to do 1 more egg. You can just put the whole egg in there. It can handle it, and it'll whip it up and all that good stuff in there. And then we're going to add 4 teaspoons of sea salt. You want to make sure that you are using salt that has color, whether it's gray or pink, because that's saying, hey, I'm full of minerals and they haven't been stripped out and used for something else. If you go to the store and you're buying salt, that is, it says that it's sea salt, but it's solid white. it came from the sea, so technically they can say that, but it is not what you want to bring into your home because it has a very negative effect. Actually, the opposite. It is killing taste buds, causing that negative blood pressure response, retention, water retention. So we don't want any of that. Sea salt, very big deal, game changer. Another 1.5 cups of water, because I didn't do it twice yet, right? No. Woo! It's been a busy day. By the way, how are you guys doing out there? Let us know how you're doing. Are you doing the fresh milled thing yet? I want to highly encourage you, if you're not, to do it. It's fun, it's delicious. I don't know if you've ever had pastries that kind of leave that yucky film on the roof of your mouth. This will never do that. Super nourishing. It makes a great gift. Give the gift of health. Okay, so right now I am going to go ahead and I'm going to mill my flour. We're going to talk about this little mill over here. It's not time for the yeast yet because once you put yeast in, it's ready to go. So you want to make sure you put that in last. Last but not yeast. Just kidding, just kidding. That was a bad one, wasn't it? So I love the classic mill from Nutrimil. And just to let you know, if you are interested in purchasing a mill or a Bosch or the Artiste is a good mixer too, but it doesn't hold the load as the Bosch, but not everybody's gonna be making 5 or 6 loaves of bread. So if you have a small family or if it's just you and you're just making 1, 2, 3, even 4 loaves of bread, the Artiste is a great selling point and I highly recommend it. If you need a little heavier workload, then go with the Bosch. The classic mill, what I love about this is I can go ahead and put everything in the hopper while it's turned off. And if I needed to stop it because something happened and I had to come back to it, I can. For this recipe, my favorite concoction is half hard red and half hard white. Let me go ahead and get this out of the way. Half hard red, half hard white, because we're covering a larger nutrient profile. Hard red is a little bit higher in vitamin E, and vitamin E is the precursor for iron, and many people that are iron deficient need the vitamin E so that the body can process the iron, and it's all in this bread. Higher in the red, but the white is good as well. White helps to give it a milder flavor, so I'm doing 4 cups of red and 4 cups of white. I got to keep up with these double measurements. And just so you know, if you want to play around with some other grains like einkorn, emmer, sorghum, karazen, you can add 30% of whatever you want to your recipe and it will be fine. Your bread will come out fine. So you can kind of play around with those notes and then maybe increase as you kind of learn how to use them. So put that in there. We're gonna and we can just start it. So right here, they have different textures. So to the left is fine and to the right is coarse. So you have a variety in these controls, and this, which is what turns it on, is going to mimic this. So if it's coarse, 2 o'clock, or 3 o'clock, then this is going to be at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Everything, the flour goes in here, and the main thing is this says yes or no. There's a line here. So if it's not in far enough, it's going to say no. And if you don't listen to it or pay attention, you're going to have flour going everywhere. So you just want to make sure that that drawer is pushed in all the way and you see the line that says yes. You'll only forget once, trust me. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on and let it do its magic. Okay, that's finally ready. I'm going to show you. Here is where it's holding all, and that just now popped off. So that is something that you want to make sure, if you get the classic mill, that you empty it. You don't have to empty it all the time, but every so often. It's very usable. There's nothing wrong with this. Just part of the filtering process. And there is no perfect mill. I'm just going to tell you that right now because we are dealing with flour. Doesn't matter what flour, what mill you get, it's going to get a little messy. So it's not like, oh, well, this one's not messy, let's buy this one. It doesn't exist. So here we have all of our wonderful warm I love to smell it. Flour, nutritious. I see nutrients. That's what I see. Okay, so we're gonna move this to the side. As you see, I travel with this because I like to go and bless people with bread and make it when I am at their home, if they say that's okay. But you have a little place where you can put your hand, so it makes it very easy to travel with and move it around. We're gonna put that right there. I'm gonna talk about another meal that I have in just a second, but we've got to get this bread going. We're gonna go ahead and start mixing this, and we're gonna talk about hydration. It's not an exact science. So if you see a recipe, it's like 4.5 cups of flour. We don't know that for sure because every crop is different. If your grain is grown in the winter, if it's grown in the spring, it can have different hydration. And also they might be using a different type of hard red or hard white, and then it's going to maybe have more fluff, maybe have less fluff. So it's not an exact science. When you mill the grain, it gets bigger. So a 1/3 cup of grain is gonna give you about 1/2 cup of flour. So see how that works. So we're gonna get this going and see how much we actually need. And remember, we're making 4 loaves. I like to keep mine on 1. It's just slower, and I like the slow and steady mix. This is where I like to add my yeast. Sometimes I'll add 1/3 of crozin, which is very nutrient dense as well. It's higher in protein. It's an ancient grain, and I get that from Ancient Grains, which is one of the places that I get my grains from. Love Ancient Grains. We're actually going to start a little co-op, so if you're interested, leave me a comment and I'll kind of let you know about that if you're local to Easley, Greenville, Pickens, South Carolina. So I'm going to go ahead and add my yeast because we remember that we add yeast towards the end so that it doesn't overproof. And I go ahead and put in a little bit. This is active dry yeast, so we're going to put it on top of the dry, and then we're going to mix it in. And we are doing 2 tablespoons because I doubled this. So that's 1 and that's 2. Don't forget your yeast. I have done it before, and I can tell you that is a bummer because then bread just doesn't taste as good. Don't forget the salt. Jesus is the salt of the earth, and we need salt in our bread for it to taste good. It does come with a lid if you want that on there, and then it kind of helps to keep everything contained. We want to err on the side of tiny bit sticky. That way you're going to get a lot more rise in the bread. So we want to add slowly, make sure that we don't get too dry. It's not ready yet, so we're going to add a little bit more. Take your time. That's the point. Take your time. Let's test that out. It's feeling pretty good. I'm going to do just a tiny bit more and then I'm going to let it go. Okay, Okay, and so just to let you know, the way that it feels now, once we get through kneading, it's going to feel completely different. It's not going to be near as sticky. And if for some reason you just left it too sticky, you can add some flour on the board and flour on your hands, and it's going to be okay. But if you add too much, you can't pull it out. And so then it's a problem, a little bit of a problem, although I have had a little bit more denser bread and it still was fine and it's still nutrient. So we're going to let this knead for 10 minutes. And the reason why we're kneading it for 10 minutes is because we're making 4 loaves, so there's more dough. If I only did 2, we'd only need about 7 minutes. But at the end, I still like to do a little bit of a window pane test, which I will show you that. So we're gonna set the timer for 10 minutes and we're gonna let this go. A window pane test is where you want to stretch, see how stretchy that is? And it's just beautiful. And you want to be able to get it to kind of pull apart. See, that's the window pane without it tearing. So if it wasn't ready, it wasn't kneaded enough, this would just tear a hole. You wouldn't see that translucent, and that is perfect, beautiful. So 10 minutes on this knead made a great difference. They also have cookie paddles, and the cookie paddles are great for cookies. Throw it all in, whip it up. No more 2 bowls. You can do it all in one, just a master machine. If I were only making 2 loaves of bread, I would keep the dough in here and I would proof it in this bowl. But I'm not, I am doing 4, and since it's so much, it needs a little bit more space. So I brought out a bowl. I'm gonna put a little oil in there just to make sure there's no sticking. You could flour yours if you want, but I really like to put oil in my bowl. And I have people say, my bread just doesn't turn out like yours. So first of all, there is something called autolyse, which we did not do today. I have noticed recently that it doesn't make a huge bit of difference, but if you choose to autolyse, what you're doing is you're soaking the grain with the liquids, everything except the yeast, and you're letting it hang out between 15 minutes all the way up to an hour. And what that is doing is it is drawing the hydration into the flour, and so it is starting the process and hydrating that flour. But like I said, recently I dropped it out for time's sake, and I haven't noticed a big difference. What I do like to do is cover the dough with a damp towel, because dough loves moisture, and the more moisture you get in the air, that humidity, you see that if you've ever walked into Panera Bread and you see where they have their bagels and it's just covered with steam, it's because it loves that hydration. We're gonna let this proof for 45 minutes, and I'm gonna talk about that more in just a minute. Okay, for the fluffiest bread, you're going to want to proof for 45 minutes. And I have tested this. Again, if you're in a time crunch, drop out the autolyse, do 30 minutes on your proof, do 30 minutes on the second proof. You're gonna have great bread, I promise. I actually did this at a bread class. It turned out delicious. But for the ultimate fluff, and if you have time, then do these steps and you will have the fluffiest bread. Because if you're at home and you have time, what does it matter, right? You can go be doing your thing while you have your timer in your hand. So we are letting it proof for 45 minutes. You don't want to go any longer than that, because then you can have an overproof problem. So you don't want to underproof, you don't want to overproof. The way that you can tell if you have overproofed is that at the end, your bread's going to fall. And so if you see that it has fallen in the center, a lot of times that's because it overproofed. And if it underproofed, then you're just going to know, because it's going to be more dense and it's not going to rise as tall. So those are some of those tips, but I want to talk about the grain. And one of my favorite companies to get grain from is 4 Generations. They're out in Oklahoma and they are doing an amazing job because they are organic, they are glyphosate free and tested using heirloom seeds. This is a family owned company for generations, and you gotta love the good old farmer. I mean, that just blesses my heart. Somebody that has actually cared for their crops, cared for their land. It is sustainable, regenerative, and it is worth a few more pennies, because the way that they clean their grains and they package their grains, if you buy them in the pails, they are CO2 packed and you don't have to worry about anything moving around in there. I have ordered from particular companies, got them in, and 6 months later, at the bottom of the barrel, there are bugs. I've also had grain that tasted like grass. Grass got in with the grain and they didn't clean it enough, and because it was all in there together, it tasted like grass, and that's not fun. Fortunately, the company was very kind and they knew what happened and they did exchange it. It was just kind of a pain to have to deal with that. So you don't have to worry about that with this company. And I've tried everything except I still need to, I have Durham and I have not played around with that yet, but I'm going to. But I have a discount code, so you can also save money on this using my discount code, which is Entire Healing. I will put it in the description below. Okay, so Tracy just brought up a really good point. She was asking about yeast, and first of all, there's several different types of yeast. I use the active dry. I don't like the rapid because I don't want to hurry it up. I like it to take its time. I want to show you this. I also have this beautiful mill. This is called a Harvest. So there's two types of mills. There's one that's a stone mill. There's one that is steel blades. So the one that I showed you in the beginning is steel blades. This one is stones. So the stones, like the old mills back in the day, talks about in the Bible, that's what this one is using. And so this is a beautiful alternative, is it not? It's absolutely beautiful. It's small and it's great if somebody wants to be able to set it out on their counter and have a really pretty look. I love this machine. It is not a workhorse. And what I mean by that is, first of all, you have to turn it on first. You don't load it until it's turned on. It does have great different settings. You can go from fine to coarse, just like in the other one, but you don't stop it until it's done. And this one can only mill for about 10 minutes and then it will heat. It can overheat. So you have to stop. So if you're making lots of bread, lots of muffins, lots of cookies, you know, whatever, and you're milling all the time, you want that one. If that's not a big deal, then you might want this one because it's nice and pretty. So I am very grateful for this. I do use it a lot. So unless I am baking for other people, you cannot go wrong with whatever mill you choose. You can't. But it just depends on your personal needs. So this one, you also can save if you use my code, Entire Healing, but it comes with this little tool to clean this and, you know, clean that up a little bit. Baking, don't over bake. So last night I made 4 loaves of bread and I fell asleep and they baked too long. Best advice for you is to get a thermometer that has a timer on it. So when it reaches that perfect internal temperature, the beeper goes off and you know foolproof it's ready. I prefer my bread at 190 perfect temperature. That was one of the things that was a problem for me for years, is I undercooked my bread. I was so afraid I was going to overcook it. The outside looked good, but the internal temperature was not. It probably was at 175. So anywhere between 180 and 200, my perfect temp is 190. If you're working with milk bread, you know, breads with milk in them, you're going to want it at about 210. And if you're working with cinnamon bread, which I am going to be in a little bit, then you're going to want that at 200. So that's my best advice, kind of target shooting, how to get the best bread. I absolutely love ceramic. They give you the best. I only have one. I don't know where to find these. My daughter got me this from Anthropology. But see how it's shaped? It just pushes it up more, and it's ceramic. But my Norpro pans are great. They're great. And I've heard that USA pans are amazing. And I have these linked in my Amazon store, which I'll put in the description below. I want to thank you so much for being here. And if you're enjoying my content and you would like to help support my channel, one of the ways that you can do that is by purchasing my 7-day Reboot. It's an ebook that has been carefully crafted to cover 7 days of nutrient-dense meals. And the kicker is, the bonus is that it comes with a grocery list. So it's all done for you. I have a lot of explanations of why I designed it like I did, within the book. It's very colorful, and I think that you'll enjoy it, and I will put a link in the description below. For about the cost of a cup of coffee, you can buy something that is going to do something so much better for you than a cup of coffee.
Let it